In order to create virtual operating system, we need to install VMware Workstation. Using VMware Workstation, we can create virtual operating system on the laptop. Now I am installing VMware Workstation on my laptop. In fact, you can also use VMware Player instead of VMware Workstation. The choice is yours, but I prefer VMware Workstation because it has got more features than VMware Player. But you can use VMware Player to create the cluster. VMware Workstation, you have to pay the license. I guess $50 or something for VMware Workstation. But for Player, it is free. You can freely download that software and play with it. VMware Workstation has been installed. Let us check the VMware software. Okay, here when you open the software, you will have empty workstation setup. Previously I installed CentOS. That is the reason why it is picking up that entry here, but usually it will be empty here. There won't be anything. So let's create, we need to create 4 virtual operating system. First we will create domain controller operating system. First we will create blank operating system, blank virtual OS file. Later on we will add the operating system. There is a bug in Windows Server 2012. When I say I can select Windows Server 2012 and go ahead and install, but later on I will get a license error, something during the installation process. So when I read some articles about this error, I found that there is some problem with Windows Server licensing files with the VMware Workstation. So the solution is, first go ahead and create the virtual OS disk file, and after that you can install the Windows Server later on. So the mission name is cluster DC. Okay, I will assign 2 GB for now. Later on, when I add the remaining 3 nodes, I will reduce the RAM for this server. Select the bridge networking. You need 2 networks, one for public and another one for private. Typically, SQL cluster, it doesn't really need the private IP for heartbeat. It can use the public network for heartbeat. but you need to have redundancy. When you use the same network, one network for public and heartbeat, then that is single point of failure. There is no redundancy for the network. Okay, the cluster concept is, have a redundancy everywhere. When you set up public network for both the live transactions and the heartbeat, it will give a warning saying that there is no redundancy for the network, and blah blah blah. So basically you need to create two network. First I will assign a bridge network, later on I will add a host only network. Create new virtual disk. So this is fine. So 25 GB. Store as we can allocate all the disk space now, anyway we need it. Okay, now it is creating the the operating system disk file, the image for that virtual operating system. Okay, so we created the cluster DC server. We have to install the operating system on this machine. In order to do that, provide the ISO file where we have the Windows Server software. I have created 3 copies of Windows operating system so that I can parallelly install 3 virtual operating systems. I have given the ISO file in the boot up. Now I am going to start this virtual machine which will install Windows Server 2012. Parallelly, I will create the remaining virtual operating systems. Now it is creating the file for node 1, the disk for node 1. You can see that Okay, so we created the node 1 operating system file. I am on cluster DC machine. Let's go ahead and install Windows Server 2012 on cluster DC machine. Similarly, to set up node 1, we have to give the ISO path. I made 3 copies of Windows Server 2012. Let's give the first copy to install node 1 parallelly along with the cluster DC server. Let's power on this server. So I'm going to select Windows Server 2012 data center evaluation version with GUI. Okay, so here we are parallelly installing cluster DC and node 1. Let us create 2 more virtual OS. Okay, node 2 virtual operating system file is created. Now let us go to cluster DC server, and this is in the process of installing Windows Server operating system. Now let's start installing Windows Server operating system on node 2. To do that, we have to provide the ISO file for this operating system. Okay, now it started installing Windows Server on Node 2. Let's go to cluster DC machine. Alright, let's start installing Node 3. Let's remove the ISO file because we wanted to use that ISO file. Okay, alright, now cluster DC server and node 1 server is not using the ISO file, so we can use the ISO file for node 3. So let us start installing node 3 server. In fact, I could have copied the operating system. For example, let us say I can copy cluster DC virtual operating system and make 3 copies of it, but that really didn't work. I have to do so many changes. Rather, I would prefer creating a new operating system right from scratch. Okay, so it will take some time. I will pause the video here and I will resume once the node 3 operating system file is created. Okay. Okay, we installed node 3 operating system files. Now let's provide ISO file for this node 3 operating system. Alright, I started installing Windows Server on node 2. Now let's go to node 3 and start installing the operating system on this server. Okay, so it started installing Windows on node 3. Let's go to node 2. Okay, it is already doing that work. Now let us update the Windows software on all the servers. I will pause the video here and I will resume the video after updating the Windows software on all the 4 servers.